Fabs, let's start at the quarterback position. Who do you like this week?
Let's start off with Ryan Tannehill in Miami. Bad game in week 1, really good game in week 2.
Right.
I say he has another good game in week 3. Now, the Bills have given up an average of almost 23 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Now, of course, they also faced Andrew Luck and Tom Brady. But Ryan Tannehill, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick in his last 5 home games. He has 7 touchdown passes in 3 career home games against Buffalo. So I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback this week, but if you lack Tony Romo or your quarterback is a little bit banged up right now, Tannehill is a nice option. A quarterback I don't like this week, well, that's Colin Kaepernick. I told you to start him last week. I'm saying sit him this week. The Arizona defense is very ferocious. They've allowed an average of about 14 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. He only has 3 touchdown passes in 2 career starts in the desert. I am keeping Colin Kaepernick on the bench, my friend.
All right, walk us through the rest of your stardom and sit-em quarterbacks here.
Russell Wilson's a no-brainer. I just wanted people to know that I love him this week against the Chicago Bears. I like Cam. Carson Palmer's been on fire. Guys, I'm sitting. James, you can't trust Matthew Stafford anymore. Kaepernick on there, and I'm off the Bradford bandwagon least for 1 week. At least for 1 week.
All right, how about running back that you like this week, Fabs?
In Oakland, we've got some fantasy value there. And Latavius Murray, the Browns have been brutal against the run, allowing an average of almost 24 fantasy points per game to running backs. That's 5th most in the National Football League. And Murray's the bell cow there. There's no one taking carries from him. He's going to see that right there. Goal line work as well, James. So Murray is a very nice RB2 this week from a fantasy perspective. A running back I don't like, Doug Martin. It's not that he's not played well. He's gotten a lot of opportunities, but there was the week 1 situation where the Bucs were being blown out, and last week he just didn't get the job done. Now he's playing the Texans, who have been very tough on running backs this season. Martin only has 2 touchdowns in his last 18 games as well. Only 100-plus rushing yards once in his last 17 games, so I'm keeping, can we still call him the muscle hamster?
I don't know if we can.
Whatever we call him, I'm calling him a sit.
All right, there you go. Walk us through the rest of your starting and sit-em running backs here.
You know, Mark Ingram seems like he has a bad matchup on paper, but he's got 4 touchdowns in 4 career games in Carolina. You see Murray on there. I also like the Crow. I think Joseph Randle has a good game and more carries with Tony Romo out. Lamar Miller, hard to sit. You probably have to start him, but keep in mind it's a bad matchup. Giovanni Bernard will not see the same number of touches this week that he saw last week. That will be Jeremy Hill.
All right, so at the wide receiver position, though.
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall came alive in the second half of that game.
Right.
Does he do it again in week 3?
I love the matchup, and so far I was wrong about Marshall, although I was expecting Geno Smith to be the quarterback. That's why I had him as a bust. Hey, the Amish Rifle, he makes fantasy wide receivers, my friend, into stars. And Marshall, he's not elite, but he's still a very good number 2 against the Eagles. They've given up the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. He has scored 12-plus fantasy points in each of his first 2 games. So, B. Marsh, someone that I am certainly starting this week against the Eagles. And Golden Tate, now, people loved Golden Tate coming into the season. I didn't. Because if you look at his numbers were really, really heavy in Calvin Johnson's games and his absences. But when Calvin was on the field, he averaged, Golden Tate that is, 75 yards per game. He only had 2 touchdowns and averaged fewer than 9 fantasy points. That was in 13 games last year. I don't think Golden Tate's a great fantasy player while Calvin Johnson is out there on the gridiron with him. So if I have Tate, I am benching him. I also don't love this matchup against the Denver Broncos.
Plus, you think about the emergence of Eric Ebron as well. He's kind of soaking up some targets from Golden Tate as well. How about the rest of your start him and sit him wide receivers?
I know you love that guy at the top.
D-Hop, baby. He recovers in week 3.
He'll have a big game against Tampa Bay. I also like Allen Robinson, who will be on the show Thursday. Brandon Cooks is a sit him. It's breaking my heart, but I can't start him right now. And if Drew Brees can't play, then I definitely can't start him. And V-Jax against Houston, I don't like the matchup.
All right. How about at the tight end position? What do you think about Martellus Bennett?
The return of Cam Chancellor maybe hurts Bennett's value a little bit, but number 1, it's September. Number 2, Seattle has been awful against tight ends. In fact, they've given up 13 of their last 19 touchdown catches to tight ends.
Wow.
They've allowed an average of 14.5 fantasy points per game to the position this year. So even though Chancellor's back, I'm still starting Bennett. Well, Jimmy Clausen needs that security blanket.
That's
so
a good point.
Bennett could be that guy, and we don't know what's up with Alshon Jeffrey either. A tight end I'm sitting, Zach Ertz, someone that I was high on during the preseason. He's still not getting the job done. And listen, guys, the Jets' defense is no joke, okay? This is the best defense, or one of the best defenses in the entire league. Right. Ertz only has 1 touchdown in his last 12 games. The Jets allowing 3.25 fantasy points to tight ends this year on average. So Ertz is someone, although I like his talent, that I just can't trust against Gang Green.
He's just not out there enough. He just doesn't play enough offensive snaps to be effective. But you're right, the talent is absolutely there. Walk us through the rest of your start 'em and sit 'em tight ends.
Have you seen Heath Miller's numbers? Pretty good, and he's available in a lot of leagues.
It's crazy, right?
On Thursday night, start Jordan Reed against the Giants.
Yes,
guys I'm
Jordan
sitting,
Reed.
Vernon Davis. Jordan Cameron's banged up. He's got the groin, so I'm a little worried about his health. And sit Owen Daniels.
All right, there you go.